The prophecies written in ancient Judea are notoriously dense. Decoding Isaiah's messianic visions requires tracking overlapping metaphors that layer multiple identities and chronologies on top of one another. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1 states, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." That single sentence introduces four distinct botanical variables: the rod, the stem, the branch, and the roots. Traditional biblical scholarship generally fuses these four elements together, interpreting the entirety of the verse as a singular reference to Jesus Christ coming from the lineage of King David's father, Jesse. Doctrine and Covenants chapter 113, verses 1 through 4 state that the stem of Jesse is Christ, while the rod is a servant in the hands of Christ, who is partly a descendant of Jesse as well as of Ephraim, or of the house of Joseph, on whom there is laid much power. This creates a uniquely Latter-day Saint interpretation of the text. The stem is the divine origin point, Christ. The rod is a distinct mortal servant operating under his direction. Where the mainstream theological view merges the origin and the offshoot into one entity, this modern revelation deliberately separates them. Delineating the stem from the rod clarifies the chronological map of prophecy. It establishes two separate entities, executing distinct missions across entirely different periods of history. Mapping these metaphors, the origin is on the left, the offspring on the right. Revelation chapter 5 states, "Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof." And Revelation chapter 22 verse 16 says, "I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David." Christ presents a deliberate theological paradox. As Jehovah, he is the divine creator of David's lineage, the root. Simultaneously, through Mary, he is the mortal descendant of David, the offspring. Mosiah chapter 15 verse 3 states that because he subjected the flesh to the will of the Father, being both the Father and the Son, they are one God. He is the originator and the inheritor. Matthew chapter 22 verses 41 through 46 state that Jesus explicitly challenged the gathered Pharisees with this dilemma, asking how David could call his own son Lord. The text notes no man was able to answer him a word. That silence in the New Testament proves the historical difficulty of grasping an entity who is entirely divine in origin, yet mortal in descent. This duality drives an ongoing scholarly debate. Some researchers view the branch strictly as Christ, the mortal offspring, while others read the branch as synonymous with the rod, the distinct mortal servant. Because Christ encompasses both the divine originator and the mortal descendant, the messianic prophecy requires a bimodal timeline. The text demands both a suffering servant who accumulates mortal experience and a cosmic king who exerts absolute divine authority. To trace that timeline, we shift from abstract lineage to the physical dust of ancient Jerusalem, outlining the mortal attributes of the servant. Isaiah 11 verse 2 states, "And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, and might, knowledge and fear of the Lord." This maps directly to Jesus' early physical development. The spirit he possessed as Jehovah filled his soul incrementally while he was bound by mortal flesh. Luke chapter 2 states that when the 12-year-old Jesus spoke with the scholars in the temple, all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. The historical record in Luke is the literal execution of Isaiah's ancient metric. The mortal servant acquired exact, astonishing wisdom. Building on that wisdom, Isaiah chapter 11 verse 3 states that this servant will not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. He bypassed external accusations and visual appearances entirely. He recognized the true intent of the woman at the well, he perceived the devotion of Mary Magdalene, and he saw the exact condition of the thief on the cross. Measuring the true heart of man, bypassing every mortal bias, was the essential qualification he had to earn before he could assume the role of an eschatological judge. Isaiah's text requires a severe leap in scale, from a localized, mortal ministry of 3 decades to permanent cosmic authority over the entire earth. Isaiah chapter 9 states that the government shall be upon his shoulder, to order and establish it with judgment and justice upon the throne of David forever. That earthly government was definitively not established during his 33 years in mortality. The throne of David remained empty, and the political systems of Rome persisted. Yet Isaiah chapter 11 states, "But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked." We are reading a massive structural gap in the text. Between the humble servant of verse 3 and the reigning king of verse 4, there is a 2,000-year temporal jump. Isaiah 10 states the current reality of the world. Earthly rulers pass unrighteous decrees to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor. The millennial Christ described in verse 5 stands in absolute opposition to those corrupt leaders. He replaces institutional oppression with precise equity, wearing righteousness and faithfulness as a girdle. Those promises of global justice require the delayed fulfillment of verses 4 and 5. The messianic mission outlined in Isaiah is currently paused. It is not finished. Pushing past the period of the millennium, the ancient scriptures outline the final, perfected state of the earth itself. To read the timeline accurately, we first separated the botanical identities, distinguishing the divine origin of the root from the mortal descent of the rod. Next, we tracked the text's two distinct chronological phases, moving from the quiet discernment of a mortal servant to the active, global authority of an omnipotent millennial king. Jacob chapter 5 verse 77 states that, "At the end of that millennial period, when the time cometh that evil fruit shall again come into my vineyard, then will I cause the good and the bad to be gathered, and my vineyard will I cause to be burned with fire." Following the millennial reign, the earth faces its absolute final judgment, permanently separating the good fruit from the bad. This burning is celestialization. The earth is purged by fire to establish its eternal, sanctified state, acting as the absolute capstone of the redemptive plan. The structural architecture of Isaiah 11 tracks Christ's bimodal existence, starting from the ancient roots of Jesse, spanning thousands of years, and concluding with the fiery rebirth of the world.